Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have a kind of late mid-November wrap up. I honestly didn't think I was going to film this video because I have had such an awful reading month so far, and I just honestly didn't even really want to talk about these books, but obviously they're going to end up in a wrap up at some point. So I figured I would scrape them together and film this video, so let's just get right into it. So the first book that I read this month was Daisy Haites by Jessa Hastings. I'm doing an entire video on this series. It will be out in December, and so I'm not going to go too much into this. I will say that I hated this book, and this may have been what started me down this reading slump path that I seem to have gone down this month. So didn't like this one. Won't be continuing on with the series, but like I said, I'll have a whole video explaining every single thing that I didn't like about this book. The next book I read was One True Loves by Jenkins Reid. This was for a video that I am also going to have up in December that I'm working on, and this one I think I gave 2.5, maybe 3 stars. I was very disappointed in this book. Like I said, I'm not going to get too into it, but I just felt like with how much this is hyped and how much Jenkins Reid is hyped, I was really expecting this book to be like absolutely gut-wrenching and like not being able to decide between the two guys and just like being emotionally distraught by the time I was done it. And honestly, it was just so shallow that I didn't feel any of that, and I feel like that was very disappointing for me because with how much it's hyped, I just thought it would be better than it was, and it just wasn't. Next I read Even If It Hurts by Mariano. This was another book for a video. You'll notice that is a recurring theme right now because I am trying to film all of the Bookmas videos right now, so there will be a book video every single day in December. But that obviously means that right now I'm reading a lot of books for those videos. So this was another one for that. I think I gave this 3 stars. It was okay, but I found like this was one of those books that it's a dark romance, and it was very much trying to be a dark romance. Like there were certain things that happened in this book that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense other than they added to the darkness of the book, I guess. And I feel like I didn't really vibe with that. Like I want it to seem natural. I don't want it to seem like the author wrote a regular book and then was like, okay, how can I make this darker? And that was sort of the vibe I got from this book. But it wasn't terrible. It was just like, okay. It's sort of a bully romance, I would say. And I did enjoy it, but like I said, there were just parts that I wish were more natural or were just like explained better or just like at least made some kind of sense, and they just didn't. So like I said, I think I gave this one 3 stars. It was okay. Next was RoomHate by Penelope Ward, and this has been on my TBR forever, so I'm glad I finally crossed this off. But I will say, I think I gave this 2.5 stars maybe. I have just come to the realization that I don't think I really like Penelope Ward's books. I don't know why I keep reading them. I think because when I first got into BookTube and like the book world, she was one of the authors that I feel like was very popular. Like I was seeing her books recommended a lot, and because of that I feel like I started thinking like, oh, she's really good and like she's really popular. But I think that was more like a couple years back maybe she was a more popular author, and now I find that I just don't really love her stuff. This one follows a girl, Amelia, and a guy who inherit her grandmother's beach house or like vacation house together, and he used to spend like a ton of time there with the grandmother as well, and so she leaves it to both of them, but they don't really realize that they're inheriting it together, I don't think. And so now they're kind of in this house together and they hate each other, and he brings a girlfriend, and there's like this whole thing that goes on. Honestly, I just find that I think with Penelope Ward's books what it is that it almost seems like too many tropes are squeezed into one book. Like there's always like another trope I feel like that comes about like halfway through the book or something. And there's always like a point where things change. Not really like a plot twist, but I just feel like almost like she's throwing more tropes in at that point in the book. And I don't like that. That's usually where I stop liking the book. Like they usually start off really strong and then they just kind of die. And that's kind of how I felt with this one, where like it started off really well, but by the time we got to like 75%, I was like losing interest. And that's sort of how I felt about a lot of her books lately. So I don't know that I'm in any kind of rush to pick up anything else from her, to be honest. Next, I started the Folk of Air series. The first, I obviously read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and I was very excited to read these books. I actually was going to do a whole review video on them, but I've decided against that now because I didn't love these. I went into these expecting this to be a fantasy romance because I swear that that's what I've seen this being like marketed as, and people talking about it, saying it's a fantasy romance. I read the first 2 books, there was really not like an ounce of romance in there. Like, there was a couple moments, like very, very small and short-lived moments, where I was like, oh, okay, maybe we're gonna go down this road, and then we just didn't. And I was like, okay, I don't know that I really care anymore. So I read this book, and to be honest, I was kind of confused. I had to look up a summary when I finished this one. I've seen this posted a lot as like, oh, if you don't read fantasy, you can read this and understand it. It'll be really easy. And like, maybe it is, and I'm just really that dumb. But I just didn't really understand what was going on, and I think part of it was just that maybe the plot was too simple, that I was overthinking things and thinking that like a whole lot of stuff was going on when really almost nothing was going on, because that seemed to be like a complaint in a lot of the reviews I read, was that there wasn't a whole lot going on. And one of the things I said, I can't remember if it was this book or the second book I said it for, was it felt like a collection of short stories that had been sort of combined, and not in like a way that made sense. Like, almost like short stories that had nothing to do with each other were all put into one book. And I just kind of felt like, okay, why are we here doing this now, and then now we're over here doing that, and it just like didn't connect, and I just wasn't vibing with it. I gave this one, I want to say 3.5 stars maybe. Didn't really vibe with it. Then obviously I read The Wicked King. This one I will say I did like a little bit more, because I think I understood more of it. But by the time I finished this one, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna read the last one, because like I said, 2 books in and there had been almost no romance, and that was really what I was there for. So I was kind of like, you know what, I'm not interested in seeing where this goes, because I don't even feel a connection to the characters at this point, and just kind of decided that that was where I was going to end off the series. I think I gave the second one 3.5 stars as well. Just wasn't for me. It wasn't really as romance heavy as I was anticipating, so didn't really love those either. Like I said, that's sort of been a recurring theme this month, is me just not really liking anything. And I know this time of year last year I kind of got into a reading slump, and I find it's because I am pre-filming so much right now that I sort of feel like there are certain books that I have to read to finish off videos, and I feel like I'm just like a total mood reader, so telling me I have to read a book just doesn't sit right with me. And because of that, I am sort of not loving a lot of the books I'm reading, because I am kind of in the back of my head being like, oh, if I read this book that I actually want to read, then I'm not going to have time to read this book I need to read to finish this video, and then the video is not going to go up. And I'm almost done all my Bookmas videos, but honestly there's like some that I have to wait for, like things like my best and worst books of the year. Like, I can't really film that right now. I am thinking about, I was watching a Haley in Bookland video. I think she's the one that started Bookmas, so like credit to her for that. But I was watching her video recently, and she was saying that she ends her reading year at the end of November, so that she can film like her best and worst videos like at the end of November. And I was kind of thinking like, that's not a terrible idea. Like, maybe I will just go that route, and just, you know, anything that I read in December will fall into next year's videos. So I don't know, I'm playing around with doing that. We'll see what I end up deciding with. But I think that's why I've kind of been in like a slumpy mood, is I am kind of forcing myself to read some books that I don't necessarily want to read. But at the same time, like, a lot of the books on this list are ones that I just picked to read and didn't like. Like, the next one I read was The Off Limits Rule by Sarah Adams. This one was okay. This was, like, I think I gave this 3 stars, maybe 3.5. This one is a brother's best friend, where this girl is kind of all, like, mopey about her past relationship, and her brother is like, nope, you have to get out there. Like, you gotta come out on my boat with me, and we're gonna, like, go out with my friends. And he sort of drags her out on this boat, and she doesn't really want to go, and she ends up meeting his best friend on this boat. And the brother doesn't want them anywhere near each other, because he thinks this guy is like a player and he's not going to treat her right and all this stuff. And she's like, no, like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, kind of thing. And I don't know, I just found this book was very basic. It was very short, and it didn't really like go anywhere almost. Like, you sort of knew exactly what was going to happen right from the start of the book, and there was no other sort of deviation from that plan. And I feel like that was a little boring, and so I didn't really love this one. Then after that, I read The Temporary Roomie, which is sort of like the second book in this series. Like, it goes with that book. And this one follows the best friend of the girl from the first book, I think, who ends up having to move in with the brother from the first book. And she hates him, like, absolutely cannot stand him, but she's also pregnant, and her house is flooding, and she's not with the guy that she got pregnant from. And so she ends up moving in with the brother from the first book, like I said, and they can't stand each other. They start like pranking each other and all these different things going on. And I don't know. This book I actually put down for 2 days and didn't pick up another book. Normally when I'm not vibing with a book, I will pick up another book and just be like, okay, maybe that book's not like just doing it for me right now. And this book I actually put down for 2 whole days and ended up watching like 13 episodes of The Vampire Diaries instead of reading because I just couldn't get into it. I didn't care, and I found that it was making me not even want to read at all. And so like that's not the best sign. I gave this one 3 stars, I think, but honestly I think most of it was just because I can't tell if it's just like my mood at this point, that I'm just like expecting everything to be terrible, so I'm just hating everything and nothing is living up to the hype, and it's just like nothing. I think that really is what it is nothing is living up to the hype. Like I've read so many books recently that are super popular and I keep thinking like, oh, if I read these books that everybody's raving about, maybe I'll find one that I love, and it's just not really happening. And so I feel like that's been kind of killing my book buzz this month, but didn't really love this one either. I found that it was kind of juvenile, a lot of things that they were doing with each other. The guy in this is supposed to be like a 30-year-old doctor, and yet they were doing all these like stupid things to each other, and I was just like, okay, like I just wasn't vibing with it at all. And lastly was The Hardest Fall by Maise. This was another one that I like picked up thinking like, oh, this is gonna be a 5-star read because I did really love Adam Connor and Jason Thorne. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get another one of her books. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna love it. 5 stars. Like, I'm ready. And I listened to it and it was good. It wasn't like anything great. I think I gave this 3.5 stars maybe, but I'm really not sure if it's just like my mood at this point. So like literally all of these reviews take with a grain of salt because I have just literally been hating everything. And this book follows a girl who ends up sort of accidentally living with this football player, and they obviously form a relationship from that. This one's definitely sort of got like a best friends to lovers arc to it though, because they really joke about how they're best friends a lot before they start getting together. And it was cute, but like, I don't know. I really think it might just be my mood and I'm just like not interested in anything right now. But I am currently reading QB Tyler's new book and I am enjoying that, so I don't know, maybe I just need to read some like different stuff. But that is everything that I have read in the first half of the month. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I will see you next time.